Welcome to the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast, the show for people who are ready to break out of survival mode in order to build a truly thriving life. I'm Amanda Solman, and along with Mark Jewell, my co-host and the founder and CEO of Mark Jewell Speaking and Training, we break down common roadblocks that keep people stuck surviving and share ideas to help you thrive each and every day.
In today's short episode, I want to talk a little bit about repetition. Repetition. So just this morning, I was talking with somebody who had come to me for some speaking advice, and he's wanting to get into speaking professionally and has an actually incredibly profound background. It has already impacted thousands of lives through his work and through his life story, and is now starting to be a speaker. And he sent me some of his content, which I reviewed prior to our conversation this morning, and it was apparent to me that he's an amazing storyline, and when he gets his content down, he will be an incredible speaker, and he will get paid thousands to be on stages and speak to people, and he will have a profound impact on those people's lives. But my advice to him was basically this, and now I've learned this from over 20 years of being in and around speaking, training, coaching, facilitating, and doing all the things. You only get good at speaking. You only get good at this skill set that is required to be able to go on stage, to have people feel good about paying you lots of money to be on stage, through repetition. Repetition. I want you to think about it this way. Anytime that you've ever learned a skill or something new in your life has required you to go and put it to work quickly or in the moment upon learning that new skill, and it didn't become second nature. It didn't become something that was almost inherent in your abilities until you repeated that task, that activity, that behavior again and again and again and again. Here's something that came through for me recently. I was going through some old journals, and I looked at these events that I was going to, and I looked at what I was learning and how profound I felt in the moment about the changes that I was going to make in my life. And then even knowing what I know about personal development and about personal growth, once I got back, I failed to implement any kind of repetitive system into my day that would allow me to repeat the behavior again and again and again until it became so well ingrained that it almost seemed natural. You know, I can remember back in my high school days, I took a job on a dairy farm, and one of my jobs was to clean up the yard and to clean barns with a bobcat, with a skid steer. Now, I had not grown up on a farm that allowed me to have any type of such equipment, and so I had a little bit of a learning curve. But you know, after about 10, 15, 20, and then 100 hours and more, I became pretty proficient. The skid steer became nothing more than just an extension of my body, and even though it wasn't my body, it was something that I could get it to do whatever it needed to do. And I could make the bucket go up and go down, and I could do it while I was moving forwards and backwards, and I could spin around in tight spaces and not knock off gates, and not because I didn't knock a few off while I was learning either, right? You have to take some trial and error while you're practicing. Repetition. But guys, here's the thing. I want to get back to, like, you know, why, even though I know what I know about personal development, and should be easy for me to implement change anytime I learn something new, right? Shouldn't it, like, when you spend your time in your life in the personal development space, if you're somebody like Mark Jewell or Amanda or Wade or John or from our team or Christina or Todd or anybody else, like, shouldn't it be second nature to be able to just put it all on and just wear it like a new shirt? Guys, that's not where skill acquisition comes from. It's just not. You know, so often we send people to training, in corporate America, and we expect them to be able to go to training for a couple of days and then come home and be perfect or be masters at that thing. And the reality is it's not true. It takes repetition. It takes the opportunity to try it again. And you might be saying, well, so what, Mark? Why don't, that isn't that what we do? And the answer, unfortunately, you guys, so often is no. We don't create systems in our workspace to hold people accountable to trying things again and again and again. And almost always they intend well, they mean well. It's just that our environment that we came from, that we live in, that we work in, does not support the new version of you with that new behavior. And so this is so often why you'll try something new for a few days and you're like, this is really nice, this works, da 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 da. But what happens is that new environment wasn't built to support you doing that in the long term. It doesn't support you repeating said behavior again and again and again. And so even though you try it for a few times, you try it for a few days, maybe a few weeks, you do it, but then all of a sudden you start to go back into your old ways because your environment supported a version of you that did that in the past. So not only is repetition important from a personal perspective, and if you ever want to learn or grow in any area, it always boils down to repetition. But it also depends and is highly dependent, on the environment supporting that new behavior. So if you have somebody on your team who's trying to grow, who's trying to learn something new, are you talking to them about it? Are you bringing it up on a regular basis? Are you creating the space within which they can try that new skill and where it's okay for them to fail with that new skill? In fact, do you even possibly celebrate the fact that they tried it and lost, or tried it and learned as part of something that they decided to do? See, what we so often do not do is follow up anytime somebody on our team or in our company goes to a training or goes to learn a new skill or just even starts to try something new. So if you share a resource, feel free to follow up with that person and ask, hey, did you read that article or that book or watch that video that I sent? If somebody goes to training, ask what it is. Like, what was the most profound thing? What was the number one thing that you learned? And say, great, I can't wait to see you or hear how it works for you. Let me know how I can support you. And then if they struggle with it, don't shame them. Ask them, like, hey, well, have you thought about trying it this way? Or help me understand in what way you felt like you struggled with that. But help it be a reward to create that environment around them that supports the new version of them trying something new. So often it's so hard for people to step out and try something new because we're afraid of what other people will think. So my friends, it boils down to repetition. When you put repetition together with environment, it is amazing how behavior change in that workplace or even in just any area of life space begins to change dramatically and become permanent. Repetition does not get you perfection right off the bat, but repetition over time will help to create permanence. With that, my friends, everything else is just surviving. We believe it's your time to thrive today. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Try something new, fail again, repeat, repeat, repeat. Everything else is just surviving, my friends. It's your time to thrive today. Let's go get it.
Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to jump over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. We appreciate the feedback, and it helps other people find the show. As always, if you're looking for more resources to go from surviving to thriving, check out our website at www.markjewelltraining.com. That's Jewell with 2 L's. And you can find us under Mark Jewell Speaking and Training on all the major social networks. Remember, survival is dead. It's your time to thrive today. See you next week.